From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log, with a rare Friday edition. Usually we run Monday through Thursday, and I'll post a repeat on Fridays. Actually, full disclosure, I'm recording this on a Thursday, so not to confuse things, but this is a Friday edition. Starting in February, at some point, I'm hoping that first week of February, that's the goal. We're going to be posting Charles Purcell Presents on Fridays. So it'll be The Log Monday through Thursday, and then Charles Purcell Presents on Friday. And just by way of reminder, that's the half-hour show we used to do, and we're bringing it back. Charles Purcell Presents is radio theater and soundscapes and spoken word oddness. It's a mix of different things. Some of it's serious, some of it's funny, some of it's just odd. I hope you like it. It's at the website right now, our episodes that we were doing a year plus ago. That's charlespurcell.com. So, we'll be doing that. But, today, man, let's just, can we just hang out together here for a little while and give each other some comfort? I'm feeling it. I don't know what you're feeling today. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. And the events of the commemoration just further solidify what we've known for so long. How many last straws can we have? Well, here's another last straw. Liz Cheney was the single only Republican member of the House or Senate who participated in any kind of commemoration. And it was all day. It was all day Thursday. Vice President Harris spoke, the president spoke, the Speaker of the House spoke. It was a whole day of commemorations. They had kind of a sort of a teach-in with a couple of historians, held vigils, and zero Republican attendance. How much more clear can it be that the Republican Party, as an institution, I would go so far as to say the right wing generally of this country, has devolved into a just completely 100% unacceptable faction. The right wing, as it exists today, has gone off the cliff, and we have to let it go. Every single last one of us has to unequivocally disavow today's American right wing. We've gone so far. I mean, just leagues beyond the standard conservative versus liberal, high taxes versus low taxes. A little more regulation here or a little less regulation there. Those standard sort of right-left arguments that we've had since the founding, that really the human civilization has had since its founding. I understand there's going to be debate, there are going to be differences, that's fine. But how any decent person can align themselves with the current right wing, and specifically the current Republican Party, I just can't. I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, there are the Liz Cheneys of the world who I disagree with about everything political, except this one very important thing. She believes in democracy. And that's good. But I still don't know how she can keep that R next to her name. Maybe that's the next step. Liz Cheney, please. It's like wearing a white hood at this point. It's like wearing the Nazi swastika at this point, to have that elephant symbol representing you. And I'm mostly talking about lawmakers here, people who hold office. And over the years, I've tried to be more patient with just regular folks, citizens, voters. You got the R next to your name because your parents did and their parents did, and that's always the way you voted, and you're always just kind of conservative, and you came from a conservative town. And I would always kind of give some slack. All right, I'd make my case. I'd try to reach you. But I wouldn't shame you for being a Republican or being a conservative. But After all this time, I honestly don't know. I mean, I am talking to regular folks right now. After all this time and after a full year, are you really seriously that out of touch, or are you that brainwashed that you continue to proudly define yourself as a Republican? It's literally hard for me to comprehend. And what to do? I mean, that's why I'm feeling so low today. I'm just out of answers. Some of the answers being offered are just ridiculous. Thomas Friedman, the columnist for the New York Times, has a big a big essay. His two main points are: we got to be more supportive of police because the center left to center right people don't like this radical hard left turn against police. Apparently, that's some big problem that's keeping us from having a democracy. And then, but his main point in the column, he says our last best hope is the business community. Oh yeah, we got to get the CEOs on our side. That'll help. Just to ignore an entire century's worth of history on how private business and CEOs are somehow this savior of democracy. What is he thinking? Especially in light of the fact, did you see this the other day? Headline, Newsweek from earlier this week. Major U.S. companies donated to GOP election objectors despite promise. Despite pledges to the contrary, major U.S. companies such as ExxonMobil, General Motors, Lockheed Martin, FedEx, Boeing, Pfizer, Raytheon, and others continued donating to Republican Congress members who voted against certifying the 2020 presidential election. The report from the watchdog group Accountable.us listed the companies, among others, that donated a combined $8.1 million to the 147 Republican lawmakers who voted against certifying the results of the 2020 presidential election. The watchdog group called the 147 lawmakers the Sedition Caucus, signifying a political group that rebelled against the country's authority. And the reason this watchdog group is particularly peeved about this is because these same companies 1 year ago today were saying, nope, we're done. Major corporate donations largely stopped for the first quarter of 2021. And many of these companies were overt in their statements. No, we're not having this. We support democracy. But then those donations resumed again in the second and third quarters. So, no, institutionally, we are nowhere. We've learned nothing. You and I talk often about the lessons we keep hoping to learn. It's the Lucy and the football. I always hearken back to 2008, 2009, the financial crisis. Some of us are hoping, well, finally, God, okay, we're learning some lessons here. We learn the weaknesses of the system. We learn we can't rely on the financial sector. We can't rely on credit. We can't rely on these bankers to hold in their hands the very fate of America. We got to change the system. Okay, we've seen the error of our ways. No, we learned nothing. We learned nothing. Did nothing. Every time the Orange Menace was up for one of his impeachments, or the Mueller report comes out, we think, okay, well, finally, we're going to see how bad this is, and we're going to make the correction, and we don't. Another United Nations climate report comes out. Every 6 months or so, we see this, banner headline. We think, well, this is finally going to turn the page. We have to learn. How can we not learn from this? And then the January 6th insurrection. How can we not come together? A year ago, the day after, Thursday, January 7th, 2021, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, standing up on the floor of Congress saying, we're done. This is enough. The Orange Menace is to blame. We are united. We are all united against this. That lasted about a day. And now a year later at the commemoration, they literally can't even show their faces. Even worse, while they're literally holding candles over at the Capitol. The worst among them, Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, these two yahoos are in the studio talking with Steve Bannon and spreading lie after lie after lie about January 6th. And you might say, well, okay, what do you want me to do? I got to live my life. I got to be happy. I can't wallow in this. Well, you're right. You're right. We can't wallow in anything. Wallowing is not productive. But damn, we got to do something. I mean, it's already bad enough. We already live in an oligarchy. Our votes mean very little. But they still mean something. The Democrats grabbed those 2 Senate seats in Georgia a year ago. And because of that, we had a Democratic majority in both houses. They did pass a couple of things. They passed the infrastructure bill. They got something done at least. As I say this, I realize how ridiculous that sounds. Build Back Better, which I've always touted as a minimum step to help America just sort of approach the basic social safety net that every other civilized nation on earth has had for decades. Looks no indication at all that that's happening or going to happen. The latest report I heard was that Joe Manchin just asked reporters to stop asking him about it. Voting rights. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, everybody still talking about what a top priority it is. I don't know how it's going to happen. We got Joe Manchin standing in the way of the filibuster. And that's the only way. The only way is to alter that damn filibuster, either whole hog or carve out an exception for voting rights. And he's giving no indication that he's on board for that. And if the R-word party is successful, or I should say continues to be successful in changing election laws around the country, then yeah, their goal is well in sight. Permanent minority rule in this country. You realize what that means, right? Permanent minority rule of a white supremacist Christian nationalist party. You do have some idea what that means, right? I mean, not only let's get the big stuff out of the way first. I mean, it's kind of painfully obvious. Nothing happens about the climate crisis. Well, no, let me take that back. A lot happens, but it's all bad. Every policy only hastens the climate crisis because they don't care. They're a death cult at this point. All efforts to mitigate this and future pandemics are out the window because they don't care. How has the stock market done over the course of COVID? Well, they just set records after record after record. People making money hand over fist. Billionaires turning into trillionaires. They don't care. It's working fine for them. So the environment is screwed. This and any future threat of pandemics were screwed. Financially, economically, the wealth gap, the income gap, which has only been widening since the late 1970s. That continues. Nothing to be done there. The George Floyd police violence legislation, gone, dead. And there again, we don't just lose opportunities. Those same issues are turned on their heads, and the worst possible of all scenarios takes place. So in this case, more power for police unions, less oversight of police brutality. This and every other issue is not only stopped in its tracks, but it's going full speed, high speed in the wrong direction. Anything having to do with race, anything having to do with LGBTQ issues, blatant, overt, unapologetic white supremacy in your local school board, efforts to ban books from this white supremacist Christian nationalist apartheid party. Reading from the Philadelphia Inquirer right now, experts say, we've entered a new age of censorship marked by what the American Library Association called a dramatic uptick in book challenges and outright removal of books from librarians, particularly those focusing on the experiences of Black people and queer people. In my 20 years with the association, I can't recall a time when we had multiple challenges coming in on a daily basis. So says Deborah Caldwell Stone, director of ALA's Office of Intellectual Freedom. The office saw 60% more book challenges in September 21 compared with September 2020. And those are just the challenges reported. But silent censorship, the kind that occurs in the decisions educators make about what to teach or what to carry on the shelves, is also on the rise. We saw the height of this just a couple of months ago in the Virginia election for governor. It became the top issue. This critical race theory and this whole boogeyman about education. Yeah, if you think none of this matters, if you think it's all just, oh, that's the news, it doesn't affect me. Yeah, wait until you're living in an apartheid state, which is where we're headed. It's hard for me to imagine how the Republicans don't take both the House and the Senate a year from now. Some lawmakers are vowing to impeach. Now, that's the worst case scenario, and it's not going to happen because they're, as doom and gloom as I'm sounding right now, they're not going to have a 10-vote majority in the U.S. Senate. God forbid. If they did, we'd never see another non-Republican president again. Because they've already vowed to impeach Joe Biden as soon as they take over the House. But they won't have the votes in the Senate, so it'll just be a big old show. But nothing else will happen, and all the bad things will happen, like banning books. And we're talking every level here. Local, state, fed. Any bad thing that can happen is going to happen. Just recently, just here in Wisconsin, the Republican legislature came up with this whole list of words that they wanted to ban. Reading now from Esquire. The bill would ban the teaching of concepts, including social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are concepts, words that they wanted to ban. Now I can tell you it didn't get anywhere because we have a firewall in the person of Governor Tony Evers, Democrat. So it didn't get past his desk, of course. But this is the kind of thing they're after. Culturally responsive teaching, anti-racism. Yeah, you can't, that banned. They're going to ban the concept, ban the idea. Does this sound like America to you? Does this sound like democracy to you? No, it sounds like an apartheid state. It sounds like an authoritarian minority rule state. And minority rule not just by anybody, but by, in some cases, self-proclaimed white supremacists and Christian nationalists. Is that the country you want to live in? You want to keep just putting your head under the pillow and telling me, I don't want to hear this. It's not up to me. There's nothing I can do about it. Everything's fine. My life's fine. I'll just take care of myself. I'll take care of my family. You want to keep believing that? Well, you live in a world that bans books. You live in a world that teaches your kids history the way they teach it in China. For the glory of the nation, they only teach patriotic history. Those are other laws that have been proposed and sometimes passed in certain states. I think Texas literally passed a bill like that recently, a law, signed into law by Governor Abbott, to teach patriotic history. Yeah, this the world you want to live in? It is kind of weird, isn't it? How the Republican Party, the current state of the right wing, they have a lot more in common with Vladimir Putin and the Chinese Communist Party. I mentioned the Chinese again because I couldn't help but notice this little parallel. There have been stories recently. Who was it? Oh, Josh Hawley. Senator Josh Hawley has made a big deal, and I've seen it in various media outlets. Not all of them conservative, mostly though. Very concerned about the state of masculinity. That America is being feminized. Here, let me see this. I saved this link. Here it is. The GOP's masculinity panic. Looking at Vox right now. If you follow conservative politics, you know that the state of masculinity in America has been a hot topic this past year. Republicans like Josh Hawley, a senator from Missouri and a star of the New Right, has made masculinity a signature issue. In a recent speech at the National Conservative Conference, for example, Hawley argued that the progressive left is trying to deconstruct the American man. That's quite a statement, and whether you agree with it or not, it's crucial to grapple with its appeal and how it's shaping our politics. So, yeah, this has become a favorite talking point of the right. One of Tucker Carlson's favorite little talking points. And it very much aligns with the persona and the politics of Vladimir Putin. And this headline I saw recently, Helen Gao of the New York Times, China's ban on, quote, sissy men is bound to backfire. China is facing serious challenges on multiple fronts. Great power competition with the U.S., trade disputes, the future of Taiwan, but that doesn't mean it's too preoccupied to escalate a battle of another sort on the home front. The Chinese government has been fighting what state news outlets have called a masculinity crisis for the past few years, with one top official warning that, quote, effeminate men in popular culture were corrupting a generation. The Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece decreed that young men need to have toughness and strength, and censors have blurred out male celebrities' earrings in television and online appearances. The campaign has now taken a harsher turn. In recent months, the government has dialed things up into a full-blown culture war against unorthodox masculine expression, policing it in earnest. In a slur-laden directive, television regulators in September banned, quote, sissy men and other abnormal aesthetics, unquote, from appearing on television. Then in late November, regulators cracked down on celebrities' online profiles, their fan groups, and advertising, citing, quote, abnormal aesthetics, and threatening to shut down the online accounts of those who failed to fall in line. Now, why do I bring this up? Because, once again, we've reached another in a long series of final straws. If the January 6th insurrection wasn't a final straw, well, then the 1-year anniversary of that event, the commemoration of that event, is yet another last straw. When every right-winger, when every person with an R next to their name, except for Liz Cheney, the sole exception, literally can't show their faces. They don't participate. And when they haven't been participating for the last year in any kind of governance, they've completely taken themselves out of governing. Their entire purpose as a party, as a movement, is to regain power and to hold that power. All of their efforts are either in rigging the next election after failing to reverse the last election, and where they are able to govern, in state legislatures, where Republicans hold majority, they're rigging election law, they're banning books, they're banning ideas and words, they're banning constitutionally protected women's health, ignoring or reversing any kind of sane environmental policy. They only have one goal, and they're not shy about it. Power. White power. Christian nationalist power. The power of the dollar, the power of the CEO. It's a small clique. It's a minority party trying to achieve American apartheid. And every indicator, as we speak, is in their favor. They've got everything but numbers. We still outnumber them. And that's our only hope. Our only hope is to defeat them in their effort to create minority rule. If we can do that, there's hope. And you know, people who want to make this a coalition, I've said it many times, I'll repeat it again. I have respect for people with whom I disagree politically. I'm fine with that. I think there should be a wide spectrum. I think there should be wide debate. I think the spectrum should be pretty inclusive, from left to center right to even some, hardcore conservatives. I don't like their ideas, but I'm not going to ban them from political participation. I believe in democracy. I don't believe in the current right wing. They are ideologically and historically aligned with the worst movements in American history. They don't deserve a place at the table. Their ideas have to be banished from the political discourse. And unless we fight like hell starting today, they have a real possibility to embed themselves into the American political system as a permanent minority ruling party, an American apartheid. This is a real and present threat right now.
1 year ago today, in this sacred place, democracy was attacked. Those who stormed this Capitol, and those who instigated and incited, and those who called on them to do so, held a dagger at the throat of America. Now it's up to all of us, to we the people, to stand for the rule of law, to preserve the flame of democracy, to keep the promise of America alive. The promise is at risk, targeted by the forces that value brute strength over the sanctity of democracy, fear over hope, personal gain over public good. Make no mistake about it, we're living at an inflection point in history, both at home and abroad. We're engaged anew in a struggle between democracy and autocracy, between the aspirations of the many and the greed of the few, between the people's right of self-determination and the self-seeking autocrat. From China to Russia and beyond, they're betting that democracy's days are numbered. They've actually told me democracy is too slow, too bogged down by division to succeed in today's rapidly changing, complicated world. And they're betting America will become more like them and less like us. What kind of nation are we going to be? Are we going to be a nation that accepts political violence as a norm? Are we going to be a nation where we allow partisan election officials to overturn the legally expressed will of the people? Are we going to be a nation that lives not by the light of the truth, but in the shadow of lies? We cannot allow ourselves to be that kind of nation. The way forward is to recognize the truth and to live by it. In life, there's truth, and tragically, there are lies. Lies conceived and spread for profit and power. We must be absolutely clear about what is true and what is a lie.
I love you. I'm Charles Purcell.